I always think it's best to start with biography. I just, how did you get here? Maybe you were from here, but it's always interesting, the journey, before we get into the nitty-gritty stuff. So how did it all work out for you?
Okay, so in 2010, I went to a budget hearing, basically, in Talbot County. And from that budget hearing, I heard the teachers talking about the lack of funding for the schools. And I left that budget hearing in tears, being someone that's a product of Talbot County Public Schools, loving and valuing my teachers that helped me, even the areas that I was struggling in with algebra. And I just felt like, oh my goodness, why are these teachers begging for funding? And I left there pretty much in tears. I had kids in the public school system, so it was a concern. And in 2010, I made a decision to run. So I ran for Talbot County Council in 2010, first time ever, didn't know what I was doing, thanks to a lovely lady named Catherine Poe. She, sat down and talked to me, and I saw it as an opportunity, and I ran for the first time, unsuccessful. Ran again in 2014 for the Maryland House of Delegates. At that time, Jeannie Hadaway was leaving her seat as delegate, and I thought it would be an opportunity for a female to continue with that seat. So ran a great campaign, was unsuccessful, came in third place. The top two vote getters basically take that seat for 37B. And so fast forward now to 2018, I discussed it with my family, and I said, this is it, third time's a charm. So same reason, I believe in our educational system, have kids that have graduated from Easton High School. I have one younger son that's left to graduate. He's in 8th grade at Easton Middle. So here I am again, trying again for the community and for my family.
These are one of my questions, because, the maintenance of effort model, which the state is still sticking to. That's another issue altogether. But it makes it complicated for counties like Talbot. Yes. We don't really get the best end of that deal.
Yes.
And so the council, even though obviously the school board has a critical role to play with this, it's the council that passes these budgets.
Yes.
And they have to make a decision of how much to fully fund that school district or not.
Yes.
And so I'm just kind of curious if you're satisfied with what the council has been doing over the last couple of years.
So I am not happy with what the council has done, at least over the past 8 years that I've been following everything, so 2010 to now. I do believe that we are moving in the right direction, that has the support of the Talbot County Teachers Association in regards to the revenue tax cap, the question that's going to be on the ballot this year for Talbot County residents. I know that ballot initiative is supported by TPA as well. So I do think we're moving in the right direction in regards to education. But we have to figure out a way to sustain funding going into education. And I don't have that answer, but I think collectively coming together, various different groups, and discussing that would be a good start. How do we sustain education with a fluid economy, and ever increasing students to the public school system, when you are adding residents in the area? So with that residential development can potentially come additional children going into the school system, thus increasing the number of students in the school, needing more funding. So how do we find a funding source that can help stabilize and sustain the school system without every so many years increasing the property tax, because we know we have residents that are on fixed incomes, and it's a complex issue. But I believe coming together collectively, building consensus, having all the parties involved and talking about it and trying to come up with a resolution is the best approach.
Is there any best practice out there in the state that different counties are handling it somewhere?
I've been looking. I've been doing some research on it, and there was a report done, I believe, for the state of Chicago that I had found. And they recommended other ways to bring in funding to help fund the educational system. So I've been looking through that report, and but it means talking to the subject matter experts. And seeing if there is a way. I know there has been other states that have been able to do something with their sales tax. I have not had the opportunity to have a conversation with Comptroller Francho at this time to see if that's something doable, but there are other ways that I've been researching from that report in Chicago to try and come up with other resources other than property tax revenue to go towards the schools.
So it's just really, if I heard you correctly, it's not so much that the county has not done some of their job in fulfilling these budget, but there's not some kind of foundation. There's not a secure line of revenue that will keep this at a certain level of excellence.
Yes, yes, and I think the curriculum, of course, in the school system can be improved upon as well. I mean, we know that other counties, top-notch counties, educational system like Montgomery County and Howard counties, they emerge their kids in languages early on. Right. And so we know that, children's brain develop early, and it's easier to teach them like a new language earlier when they're younger. So how can we look at best practices within our own state, in other counties to try and add that to our curriculum to make it a little bit more rigorous for our students so that they can compete globally when they graduate.
Are you familiar with the Kirwan Commission? Are you supportive of their findings?
Yes, and so I am endorsed by the Talbot County Education's Association, Teachers Association. And so very supportive of, their efforts.
Because a lot of people are saying that the system doesn't work anymore. I mean, whatever good intentions started the maintenance of effort project, I mean, we're dealing with different realities now. Right,
right. And so, I look forward to working with the Talbot County Teachers Association and, again, bringing them part of the council if elected and just trying to talk it out and come up with solutions.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So the other thing that clearly popped up by surprise in my mind was the extension of sewer lines to the Bay 100, this remarkable pushback, at least with certain groups feeling that this was opening the door for development. Some candidates have come in and said the issue is kind of resolved now. It was a tricky thing, but I think we've found a compromise. Did you weigh in on any of this? Did you have some platform related to
in regards to the sewer extension
comp plan? And
yeah, well, my take on it was the fact that we want to make sure that if systems are failing, we do what we need to do in those areas. However, making it a open end for development is a concern. And that was my concern and continues to be my concern, although what was passed a couple weeks ago basically stated that it has to be in order for any type of development, and I may not get this exactly right, but there has to be an issue in the original zoning or a change in the area, which is state law anyway.
Right.
That is the state law for any type of rezoning or change in the zoning. So that caveat was put into the language. So hopefully, that does control development in that area.
But this is your area, so to speak, economic development. I mean, what would you want if you do win an election? Do you want to do more things in economic development that you had used in the past in other counties, or what do you bring to the table on that?
Yeah, I believe that any type of commercial development, which we have in Talbot County, we have areas that have already commercially zoned land. For example, the land out by the airport. I always use that as an example. There is land that is readily available that can be used for commercial development, be it a headquarters of some sort. We are, I believe, a viable area for technology businesses, not only in our, in our municipality areas, and again, in our business park areas. We have the new park also off of Glebe Road. That's available. So there's land readily available, for businesses. Attraction typically is only about 10% of economic development, because, it does cost more to attract, but I don't see where Talbot County has done that throughout the years, where attraction is taking that 10% time. And then, the remainder goes towards retention and expansion, because economic development practices, your existing businesses create more jobs than trying to attract businesses. However, we have to have some type of attraction plan. We have to be seen. We have to attend trade shows. We have to go out and market the county as a economic development location in order for companies to come in. And we're competing globally. International development, may be an area as well that has not been focused on per se within Talbot County. But this goes back to the Deary Hayes days. Economic development has not been, at least that attraction piece, has not been a focus. And there just needs to be some focus on that. Not saying that that is going to be the end-all be-all, but there has to be a combination plan to try and attract and also grow the existing businesses that are already here. And there are technology, companies that are here. I believe that Eastern Shore Entrepreneurship Center and the Metro Regional Council does a great job with working with us in economic development. They have a F3 tech program that they're doing to encourage agri-tech and aquatech. Aquaculture is always a good business. It's a way, if watermen are interested in doing something different, that's a open, way that we can expand businesses and clean up the Chesapeake Bay at the same time. So there are different, things that can be done in economic development. I just feel like there needs to be more of a focus on it.
Did you find it helpful to combine tourism with economic development, or was that something that you would have given more thought to?
Personally, I would not have combined economic development and tourism. Cassandra is wonderful at what she does, and certainly tourism is her background, but from my perspective and my 17 years in doing this, I would not have combined economic development and tourism.
Just because it distracts from each other?
Just because, tourism is an industry under economic development, and I just believe that it needs to be separate. The way that you go about marketing to tourists is a little bit different on the commercial side. So I just feel like sometimes there may be more of a focus on one side than the other if someone has a tourism background. And that's, my personal, opinion, and also what I've seen professionally. Yeah. So in Dorchester, it's separate. In most counties in the state, and I don't have the exact number, it is separate. That way economic development professionals can focus on economic development, and tourism professionals can focus solely on tourism. And even in Maryland Department of Commerce, we have, separate tourism, and commerce, handles the economic development side.
I see. Switching channels. We have a significant birthday celebrated in this county this year. Frederick Douglass turns 200. It's just the logical time to get a check-in on where we are in race relations and diversity. And as you know, the county went through a very painful conversation about the Talbot boys not too long ago. The county ruled to keep the statue there. The reality, if I look at it from a national point of view, is this will not go away anytime soon. this is still very much on the forefront of many municipalities who are dealing with these issues. But in the broader sense, how are we doing, or what marks would you give us in terms of the county, in terms of our
race relations?
Yeah.
So, I was thinking about that today. There's still work that needs to be done in regards to race relations. I mean, there are things that, and I can only speak from a personal level, there are examples and instances that have happened to, my family in Talbot County. My son was racially profiled at the age of 7 by the Easton Police Department. That was my first encounter with that. It was during the time when Blockbuster Video was here, and my mother-in-law and I took my son to Peebles to buy him a pair of shoes, and someone had went to Blockbuster and stole a video, and apparently they were an African-American male. So the police department came to the area. We were coming out of the store, and they stopped us. And we basically said that we had been in Peebles looking for shoes. We walked to our car. The salesperson, I went back in because as we walked to the car, the police officers blocked the car in, and would not allow us to leave. And so I got out of the car and asked them what they were doing, and they said there had been a theft at Blockbuster. And so I said, well, we explained it wasn't my son, so we need to go. So they wouldn't let us go. So I went into Peebles and went to the sales associate at that time. The sales associate came out and shared with the Easton police officer that my son had been in the store with us the whole time. That wasn't acceptable to them. They then brought in probably 2 more police cars. And by that time I was not happy because I felt like a mother couldn't defend her child, and the police officer and I had words, and they threatened to arrest me. And it didn't feel good for such a small incident. So they went to Blockbuster, got the sales clerk that was there at that time, put her in the police car, brought her around, and right where Tuesday morning is right now, they pulled the police car around, asked my son to step in the street so that this salesperson could say yes or no if it was him. And she said no, that it was not. She did her head just like this. So I filed a complaint with Internal Affairs, and I involved the NAACP at that time. Nothing was done, but my son had a fear of police officers from that point on, and I had to call his doctor that evening to explain what had happened, and they had to give him medication. And so fast forward to now, we're seeing that young African American males are dying throughout our country. We have to be diligent about talking to our kids about when they encounter the police. My son is now 26 years old. He's at University of Maryland studying criminology. However, he still has had an incident with Easton Police probably about a year ago. And who did he call? Me again. And so I had to go to Easton Police again because it is absolutely unacceptable. So there's a ways to go. We have to educate people. For anybody to think that because of someone's color or race, they are beneath them is just ignorance, in my opinion. Yeah. So there's a lot of work to be done.
What can you do in the council level to make that better? Go ahead.
I've been thinking about that. And there's a lot of conversations around racism right now and diversity and inclusion. I don't know if the county council has any type of training, for employees, for community members. I know that Talbot County Schools at one time did courageous conversations. And something like that is definitely needed. And I think it starts at the head, which would be the county council level, with employees and how they look at people. Sometimes people have a bias and don't even realize it.
Yeah, of course.
And, you know, I personally have not been ever called out of my name or anything like that. I've had some looks that may, you know, be a little strange,
Right.
but feeling it personally through my kids is what has really hurt me.
Yeah.
Through my oldest son, my daughter has shared now that she's 18 and out of, you know, high school, some of the remarks on the bus, you know, from kids, using, not directly calling her the N-word, but using the N-word on the Talbot County public school buses. But she never told me or my husband until now, and she was younger. So it could have been addressed then, but I guess she just didn't want to make a big deal out of it. And just a lot of things that she's now sharing that she experienced specifically in the school system that should not be happening.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more education that needs to take place.
So we've talked about a couple of issues, but you must have some other issues that, if elected, you know, I just want to give you the chance to talk of the things that we haven't, whether it be the income tax cap or the, I mean, whatever it has to be.
You know, I really think that, you know, we touched on, you know, most of my platform issues and concerns. You know, education is one, as I stated. Economic development is another. And just the environment, supporting our, you know, watermen and the ag industry, and ensuring that we're balancing policies to have, you know, good environmental stewardship, you know, are just areas that I would really want to work on and are submitted, you know, committed to tackling and supporting. But I will say, if elected, I think it would show a great step towards unity and diversity in Talbot County, because, you know, I would be the first African American female elected to the county council. And wouldn't it be great to celebrate, you know, beyond party lines, that, you know, Democrats, Republicans, and Independents came together to elect this individual? To me, that would speak volumes for our county.
Yeah.
It really would.
What the other thing is, my count, I think there are 10 people running.
Yes.
So it's a very packed election. And what would you say you're bringing to the table in terms of what you know, what differentiates your experience from maybe the others that would be attractive to a voter? So,
being a Talbot County native and growing up right here in Easton, my small beginnings started on 16 South Aurora Street, right above what used to be Ayers Laundromat is now the barber shop.
Oh, right.
And so that's where I started. That's where I was raised for many years with my mother and my grandmother, living in this tiny one-bedroom apartment. And from that, I learned the value of working hard. I learned the value of pursuing your education no matter what roadblocks come in your way, perseverance, and I learned grit. And I just kept working hard. And I said, you know, one day I'm going to own my own home. And I'm going to live right here in Talbot County. And so I worked hard to do that, to teach my kids the value of that. And now, you know, I can say that what I spoke at a young age has manifested and has come true. So I was able to purchase a home and live right here in Talbot County. And for me, this is where I want to be. Right. You know, this is where I wanted to raise my kids. And regardless if they feel as though they want to go off to a big city, I still believe they'll come back. They'll come back here because there's no, you know, this is truly the best life. I mean, I love the quality of life that we have here. Being a native, yes, I want to preserve it. I also want to give, you know, people hope that, yeah, you can start there, but you can end up here. Yeah. And you keep going. Experience, I bring experience to the table, you know, 17 years in economic development. Before that, I started off here, you know, working in banking at St. Michael's Bank under the great Buck Duncan.
Oh.
So still, see him, still respect him. So, I am entrenched in Talbot County. I also have a nonprofit here, the Foundation of Hope, where I work with young girls at Easton Middle School. This is our 3rd year. They are an extension of my family. They are my daughters too. Just teaching them soft skills and how to deal with bullying and economic development, how to prepare for a job, all of those things that are going to matter to them later on in life. So, my commitment to the community is, evident through that. I believe I'm a census builder. That's one thing that I had to do in Dorchester, doing the technology park and the incubator. I walked into a project that was 9 years stagnant. And with that, I was able to build consensus around the table through the city of Cambridge and the county and the state and get our project to where it is today and have the incubator 60% full when I left there in 2016 with technology businesses. So doing that, you had to plan and prepare. You had to network a lot outside of the county, had to work with state organizations, and then serving as the state president for Maryland Economic Development Association, really gives me credibility throughout the state. So the local, at a local level and also on a state level and federal level, I know who to go to. I know who to talk to. And that's not just on a partisan side, but a bipartisan approach. Appointed by Larry Hogan to the Maryland Marketing Partnership Board for Maryland Department of Commerce. So continue to work on that board and help with, our new Maryland Open for Business marketing effort. So, a value of experience and expertise and just knowing people throughout the state of Maryland and having people, around the world that I can call, as an economic development professional and just ask, have you had this situation? Do you have any best practices that we could use? Just having that wide range of experience and touch to various different colleagues, I find to be something valuable and a value add to me being elected as a county council representative.
Well, I admire that you're in the arena. Thank you for it takes a lot of energy to do what you all are doing, and thank you for participating.
Thank you for having me.